All right, we are back at my desk, which means we are reacting to a list this time. It's the Hugo short list that was just released. And yeah, it's gonna be hopefully a fun type of, being all annoyed and happy about different things. No big controversy that I see so far. It's only been out for like an hour, but I'm pretty sure this is more of like normal stuff. If you somehow have been under a rock and missed all the Hugo drama, I have a lot of videos on it. I've talked about the Hugos more than I would really like to this year. And so I wanted to see what would show up on this list. I purposefully hadn't bought a membership yet this year because I was so lukewarm on 2023 releases. Like truly, I was having issues. And then the Nebula list had me kind of excited. Like, I'm still nervous about it and I'm starting to like slowly read through them, but like they were mostly books I hadn't read. So maybe I was just reading the wrong books for me in 2023. So I was curious what the masses for the Hugos would do. And I talk about this briefly in every Hugo video I talk about, but the Hugos are like a fan voting situation. You have to pay a membership fee. It's usually around $50 just to be a supporting member. It counts if you choose to go to the convention. That makes you a member as well, I think pretty much automatically. And that money goes to support Worldcon, which is where the Hugos are held. Okay. So Nebula, I compared it to like the Golden Globes, the Tonys, the Oscars, because you have to be a part of a membership of some guild. That's the Writers Guild. This is just people in the fandom who have the disposable income and want to pay for this and have opinions. And it's been happening for a while. And I think in general, the demographic is fairly on the older side, but might be slowly shifting. But in general, it's a popularity contest that has a paywall. Okay, so that's how we go into this. And Glasgow's had to deal with all the controversy, so it's been very transparent how many ballots have existed, why certain people weren't eligible, who declined nominations, etc. We don't have many questions. So let's get into it, starting with novel. All right, the first one is The Adventures. Well, I don't think these are ranked in any particular order, but the first one like on the list is The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi. I read this last year. I liked it. I didn't love it. It's an adventure story. I'm not really big on adventure stories. I don't think it's like that groundbreaking. Then again, like if there's no rules for nominating books for the Hugos other than they need to be published in the previous year. So it's not like everyone who's nominating or voting is necessarily thinking, what is an award-winning book? Some people are just like, this was my favorite book of last year. I'm going to nominate it. And I know for myself, I have favorite books that I love that I'm also like, but is that an award-winning book? Because personally, I have a different internal definition. So that's what you can kind of see when you have like these fan award situations is like, everyone has their own definition of what should be deserving. And to me, this was a good book, but it's just your standard last job, bring the crew together to do a task type of book. It's not that exciting. The Saint of Bright Doors, this was on the Nebula list. I haven't read it yet, so I do not have any thoughts. It is still the one that I'm most hoping is a for me book. I'm so hopeful that I will like this weird little book. I have no idea yet. If you didn't watch my Nebula video, I believe this is a place with magical doors or speculative-based doors. I love that kind of theme. I think it's urban, contemporary, speculative sort of stuff. I don't know. I'm going in with a lot of big hope energy. I just really want to like it. This one I don't know a lot about. Coming up next is Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh. I know she's a fairly popular author, but I've never read any of her works, and I almost read this earlier this year. I just hadn't gotten around to it, and I have seen some mixed reviews. I do think this main character is a military person, might have a chip on her shoulder, unsure. Like, I'm grabbing all of this from, like, eons ago. And so I think it's sci-fi, potentially military sci-fi. I would potentially be interested in reading that one, giving it a shot. I have no idea if that's a standalone or not, like, no clue. We have our obligatory Scalzi book. We have Starter Villain. I haven't read Scalzi yet. I'm always nervous about it. Like, I just don't read popcorn books often. I watch a lot of popcorn things. I am not above popcorn media, but it's just not something I read often. And sometimes there's a lot of humor and tone that has to go down well. And I feel like this is gonna, enter that Andy Weir territory, or that when Brandon Sanderson did Frugal Guide to not defensive baking, that's T. Kingfisher, but the Frugal Wizard's Guides of Medieval England, where it's just gonna be so over the top for me and like be this kind of like blank slate male character that I tend to usually bounce off of. I mean, I love the cat on the cover, like that looks cool. So I don't know, and I'm sure the audiobook is Audible exclusive or something, so then I'd have to like spend a credit to listen to it. And I haven't heard amazing things about the narration because I think it's Will Wheaton, who has a very particular style to narrating. I think he's just a very over-the-top narrator. So I don't know, that's there. Translation states also here, Anne Leckie is kind of like a darling, and so is this Rock Empire series, this universe. This is one I'm going to read for the Nebula, and I'm curious about, but apprehensive about, because I DNF'd the Rock Emperor trilogy after Ancillary Justice. Like, I have read Ancillary Justice, but I really bounced off of the character connection. Like, it wasn't even the writing style. I was just very apathetic to everything that was going on. Like, I thought everything was objectively cool, but I couldn't find buy-in for myself. And then, Witch King. So, Martha Wells, Witch King, and I think she actually declined a nomination for her Murderbot books for this, as well as the Nebula. And I say this all the time, I just didn't like it. I didn't like this book. Other people seem to like it, but I bounced off it super hard, and I read it for the Goodreads Choice Award Challenge, and like, I have not skim read the end of a book like that in a long time. I am not a reader who is not good at figuring out why I'm reading a book, like in terms of like, what is the purpose of this story? What are we trying to get to? In that book, it was so hard for me to figure out what are the internal goals of the global situation, the individual situation, what's going on here. I was so apathetic and bored, and I felt like it was so convoluted. And then I read the acknowledgments, and I was just like, yeah, this really didn't have any direction. Really didn't. I don't even think we ever got there. But I can see if you're someone who likes her style and you're more comfortable in her fantasy world building, it could be more fun. Potentially. I don't know. I think I'm someone who can really handle confusing fantasy. Like, it's like something I kind of love to do. And that one was just, it's not for me. It's not for me. And like in terms of their transparency, there were 1,420 ballots. There were 576 nominees total. And these top 6 that we're looking at, the lowest one had 91 votes, and the highest one had 172 votes. And we won't know which those are until we get the stats sheet in August. Now we have novella, and this is where like it's an exciting thing. So if you didn't know, in part of the controversy, a lot of Chinese works were like not allowed because they perceived slating, which is allowed anyways. I talk about it in a video. So a lot of Chinese works were not nominated that should have been. And so we actually have 2 works in novellas that are Chinese written works that are translated, so I could even read them because they're in this collection, Adventures in Space, New Short Stories by Chinese and English Science Fiction Writers. So the first one's called Life Does Not Allow Us to Meet, and the second one is Seeds of Mercury. I mean, I'm kind of just curious about this collection, so maybe I'll go find this collection, magazine, whatever it is. But that's exciting to see, and you're going to see that further on in this list as well. We have Mammoths at the Gate by Nevo. I finally did read Into the Riverlands, which is book 3. Still haven't read book 4. And I just do think that, like, my favorite has been the first one. I don't think anyone has topped the first novella in this series for me so far. But we'll see. Like, I generally like Nevo's stuff. Like, I loved Siren Queen. We'll see what happens. Mimicking of Known Successes, really adore. I've talked about that a lot on the channel this year. Really loved it. Rose House. I don't like that one. Not a big fan. I'm not shocked it's here. Like, she's won 2 Hugos. So, like, obviously the Hugo fan base likes her. So it's just like, I just really didn't like that book. And then similarly, Thornhedge, I mean, T. Kingfisher, we can probably start putting her into the Hugo darling, area. I mean, she's lovely. I love her books. This is probably one of my least favorite if I had to rank her books, but like, I don't think I've rated anything of hers lower than a 4. It's just, I think I tend to err on the side of like her fantasy romance over her fantasy retellings sort of things. So yeah. Novelet, I don't think I'm going to know a lot about the novelettes, but I do recognize some authors. So if I did decide to get a membership for voting, you typically get the packet of things, if you didn't know. So what's nice is like, yes, it's a $50 voting fee essentially to be a member, but you get a lot of the stuff to read in a packet. So it's kind of like, $50. You even get 5 things. That's $10 per thing, right? Like, so it's pretty great. So you could get all the novelettes, the short stories, the novellas, and things like that. It's really great. So I might do that. I Am AI, don't know what that is, but it seems kind of cool. This is where we also have a translated work, Introduction to 2181 Overture, 2nd edition. There's a C.L. Polk, which I have liked their novella. There's another Nevo on the Fox Roads, and I've liked her shorter works. There's a Sarah Pinsker, who is also a darling and someone who I have liked their short fiction. One Man's Treasure. This was an Uncanny magazine, and then another Uncanny magazine is The Year Without Sunshine by Naomi Kritzer, who I believe was also nominated for the Nebula, potentially for this same work, and I do like Naomi Kritzer. So, because that's the Catfishing on Catnet series. If you somehow have forgotten that that's like one of the few young adult things that I adore with all my heart. And into short story, this is where we have more translated works as well, Chinese translated works specifically. We have Tasting the Future Delicacy 3 Times. I don't know if that's translated because it doesn't have translated written. We have Answerless Journey, which is translated, and that's also in that Adventures in Space collection. I think that's an anthology I really need to look into. That's what I'm learning here. We have the other Naomi Kritzer that I think was in the Nebula's Better Living Through Algorithms. There's a P. Djeli Clark that's called How to Raise a Kraken in a Bathtub. That sounds delightful. Elliot de Bodard, also a darling of these lists. I see her name every year, but this is The Mausoleum's Children. And then there's The Sound of Children Screaming by Rachel K. Jones. Ooh, from Nightmare Magazine. I don't think I know that one. So yeah, I mean, I love short stories. So sometimes just even for the novelette and short stories, I get tempted about like purchasing a membership just to get the works to read. It's pretty awesome. Best series, I feel like I don't know many of these. The Final Architecture by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I don't even know which sci-fi series of his that is. Is that the Shards of Earth series? I don't know. I guess I could do a Google real quick. The Final Architecture. Okay, yeah, that is the Shards of Earth series. I guess there's 3 books out. Lords of Uncreation came out last year. Surprisingly, it made this list, but that did not make Best Novel. And normally Adrian Tchaikovsky is somewhere in Best Novel or Best Novella with how prolific he is. Imperial Rock, just like I said earlier with Translation State, Hugo's love this really odd world. And honestly, even though I didn't like Ancillary Justice, I do think this world is like truly fascinating, and I'm really glad it exists. It's just very compelling and creative and original. I just wish I'd gotten along with the first book more. The Last Binding. I don't know this author, Freya Marsk. Wonder if I type in The Last Binding if I'll recognize a book. This is the one that starts with A Marvelous Light. So these are kind of like fantasy romances, I believe. I didn't realize they had the 3rd one come out. So that's one that I haven't really been interested in reading, but cool that it's here. The Laundry Files, I feel like I do know. Yeah, I don't really recognize the Laundry Files, but it's here. Cool for it. October Day by Shauna McGuire. This is one of her series, that and like the Cryptid series that I really want to try by her one day. I've just been very nervous because everything I've read since middle grade by Shauna McGuire, I have not liked. And Middle Game is why I tend to still read the Hugos and other awards list, because I was not going to read Middle Game because I hated the cover. And then I was like, oh, it's the last book I haven't read for the Hugos. I should just read it. And then it was like my favorite book on that list. Now, this is another example of like, although I loved Middle Game, it didn't feel like the book that was most deserving of an award to me. Now, at the time, I wasn't like a voting member or anything. I just really liked that book. And then we've got The Universe of Shuya. I don't know if that's how you say that, but Elliot de Bodard. I do not know what that is, but again, I mentioned earlier, she's kind of a darling. So we got Best Graphic Story or Comment. I probably am not going to recognize any of these. Like, I know about Saga, because who doesn't know about Saga, but I haven't read any of them. And then there's Wonder Woman Historia, which could be cool. I think last year there was like a Supergirl on it, so DC always seems to be around. And I guess there's the Three Body Problem Part 1 adapted from the novel. So the Three Body Problem is getting adapted all over the place. I have not read that book or seen the show. I do not know if I'll ever interact with that story. We'll find out. Best Related Works. I don't think I recognize anything here. And then, Best Presentation Long Form. So we have some overlap with what we saw in the Nebula. Barbie, Dungeons and Dragons, Nimona, Spider-Man. All of those are great. A new edition, Poor Things, which I still need to watch. I still want to watch that. It's one of the last like Oscar-nominated movies I haven't gotten to yet that I want to. And then The Wandering Earth 2, based off the novel. And this is the person who wrote Three Body Problems novel, I think, but it's like a different book by him. So yeah, I could potentially, especially if it has subtitles, would definitely need subtitles because that looks like not in English, which is totally fine. Short form, I think this is where I'm being reminded that I am a horrible Doctor Who fan who hasn't watched the specials yet, even though I did do a whole rewatch. We haven't quite finished my rewatch of David Tennant, And I'm not ready. I'm not ready, but I am ready. I don't know. But I think 2 of those episodes are here. I don't know what they're about. I'm just being reminded that I should watch it. Loki season 2 was very good. I was very surprised because I am a little burnt out on Disney TV shows. I don't think they're well paced like 99% of the time, but the Loki TV show is really good. So this episode makes sense. I'm pretty sure the Last of Us episode that's nominated is like the big one that everyone really loves. I'm not positive. I don't know the names of the episodes, but I'm pretty sure it's the one that's like a flashback to present day between these 2 men who found love during this apocalypse. Then there's 2 Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and I don't watch that show. So, I mean, probably should, but I don't. So I have no opinions on those episodes. The newest category is Best Game or Interactive Work. So I think I was told these could be video games or board games. I'm pretty sure all of these are video games, not board games. Wouldn't it be nice if there were some board games? I don't know Alan Wake 2, but if Baldur's Gate 3 doesn't win, I'm going to be floored. I will be absolutely shocked. I don't know Chance of Sonar. I don't know Dredge. I do know The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. Ryan loved that game. And then there's the Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So the 3 that I know about are Baldur's Gate 3, Legends of Zelda, and Star Wars Jedi. But I'm pretty sure Baldur's Gate 3 is going to blow it all out of the water. But what's interesting, and this is how you can, I guess, maybe you can at least tell that the voting base is not really gaming based, or maybe they're older, or I don't know. There were only 334 people that nominated for this new category. And so like the range was 26 votes to 157 votes. So obviously, you know, we've had thousands of ballots put in, but most people just didn't feel like voting for a game or interactive work. We have editors for short form and long form. Some that I recognize: Neil Clark, always great. Lindsay Hall, Rachi Chen. I love all of those, but otherwise I don't have strong opinion. I wish when they make the list for best professional artists that they would put the art next to them. Because I never get to see the art. This is another one where people like barely nominate. 270 ballots cast for this category. And then we have Best Semi-Pro-Zine. These are like the magazines. Some of these that I do know: Escape Pod, Faya, Choreo, Strange Horizons, and Uncanny Magazine. One that I didn't know about is Gigo Nanosaurus, which sounds fun. It's very likely that Uncanny Magazine will win. Uncanny Magazine should probably one day consider recusing themselves like some of the other magazines. but here we are. They really are a source of many novelettes and short stories that people love. Fanzines, I hear, is different. I don't know any of these, but they kind of look fun. If I was like a magazine person, I would definitely use this as a list to curate what I would want to read. Fancast, I know nothing about any of these fancasts. I recognize 0 people here. I don't pay attention to fan writers or fan artists, but if you get the packets, sometimes there's stuff in there for you to look at, which is kind of cool. And then the Lodestar to War for young adult book continues to always be a travesty for me. I really hate that the Hugos does this category. Not because young adult books don't deserve love. They deserve love. But I don't think we are the people that are meant to curate this list as a votership. Okay, so we've got P. Djeli Clark's Middle Grade. Definitely works. Liberty's Daughter, I'm pretty sure is young adult, and since Naomi Kritzer's written young adult in the past, that makes sense to me. I haven't read that one. I should probably look into it since I love her other young adult. But also, Naomi Kritzer's young adult is very popular among adults. It's not popular among young adults. Anyways, Promises Stronger Than Darkness by Charlie Jane Anders. This is published by Tor Teen, so I'm sure it's young adult. They are a Hugo darling. I actually don't know the pronouns that they use. The Sinister's Booksellers of Bath by Garth Nix. Definitely a young adult, but it's also kind of like a young adult author who's loved by adults because of nostalgia for like Sabriel and stuff like that. Okay, and then To Shape a Dragon's Breath is a Del Rey book, and a Del Rey book is never a young adult book because Del Rey does not have a young adult imprint. And some people will be like, well, why does it matter? If it feels young adult, it's adult. It matters. It matters because, of course, your adult voting base is going to be more likely to nominate a book that they see in the adult section of a bookstore. That's where they're browsing the shelves. That's where they're purchasing things. Also, in the United States, an adult book is $10 more than a young adult book because the whole point is a young adult book should be more accessible to a young adult audience. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. It's so annoying. It's just so annoying. And like, I thought finally we were done. Naomi Novik's series is done. We don't have to think about it anymore. No, we have found a way. And like, I'm a little annoyed because this happened with the Nebula list too. So I don't know. I mean, I guess you could argue potentially author's intent and like maybe we really need that new adult category. But again, I just don't think we're the people for this. And now seeing what the FIYA magazine does with their Ignite Awards, I just think that's a better way to approach these categories. I'm sure it's not a perfect way, but if you didn't know, they have it open to the public for voting, but the nomination is done by small groups and juries. And for their middle grade and young adult, they use young readers. Now, how do we pool those young readers? I mean, how do you pool any jury? I'm sure there's some subjectivity there, but it's at least younger people who are the demographic for these books putting forth what they connected with. You know, like, and then we have Unraveler by Frances Harding, which this is for Macmillan Children's Books, so that is a young adult book. I don't know anything about these books at all because I haven't been reading young adult because I'm 31 years old. And you can read young adult as an older person. I think the last time I actively was like browsing young adult shelves and reading them for myself frequently was when I was 20. Like that's just what I was doing. And then I only read young adult books now, not adult books now, not for any moral reason. It's just what happened. All right, now we got Astounding Award for Best New Writer. And this is where another happy thing happens. Because Sharon J. Zhao, and I might be pronouncing that a little incorrectly and I apologize, but their eligibility was extended because they were one of the people who was disqualified last year because of the Hugo shenanigans. And so technically you're usually only qualified for 2 years, but they extended their nomination for 3, which is nice. Everyone else, I know Sunyin Dean. What book did they write? I feel like I recognize that author, but I don't remember the book off the top of my head. Oh, The Book Eaters. Okay. The Book Eaters, which I did DNF, but I really liked the project of, so that's cool. A Jiang, second year of eligibility for them. Hannah Canner, M. Liu. I don't know many of these authors. Monikeel, Black Goose. But, you know, it's just nice that they at least extended the nomination period for Sharon. So that's what we got. That's what we got for the Hugos. Let's look at this novels list because I feel like last year I really hated it. And this year, maybe I'm just hated reading last year new releases anyways. Yeah, it's a fairly safe list. Yeah, it's fairly, yeah. I'm pretty sure most of these authors are white. There might be one that's not white. Let's find out. Yeah, we have one author that is not white that I know of. The rest of them, I'm pretty sure are white. Shannon Chakraborty's white. I'm pretty sure Emily Tesh is white. I guess I've never looked at a picture of her. Yeah, she looks very white. Very white to me. Let's see. John Scalzi, I'm pretty sure is a white guy. Anne Leckie's white. Martha Wells is white. And like I would call 3 of these Hugo Nebula darlings. Shannon Chakraborty is not necessarily a Hugo darling. I don't actually think Davabad was ever on here except for maybe Best Series. So it's kind of impressive that she made it here. And then I've only been hearing really good things about Vajra's book, The Saint of Bright Doors. So I feel like that's like the unexpected person on the nomination list. So that's why I'm really hoping I like it. Really, really hoping. Okay, what are your thoughts on the list? If you have any questions about the Hugos, feel free to ask down below. Join me in the Discord. We always have our SFF Awards chat. People are always very helpful, especially as people, try to maneuver the space because sometimes it's a little opaque learning how things work. If you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, leave a rocket ship because that's the Hugo emoji. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.